And we're working. Work, 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 work. All right, welcome back. Hope you're having a good day. This is my black olive tree. This is the Bucida, buceras, I guess. It was kind of difficult all in the shot here. Hope you guys can see enough of it. Go ahead and get into the history of the tree here first. I did get this in March of 2019. You should be looking at that picture right now. You can see this little branch here that I've left. I actually pruned it one time. It's now got 2 branches coming off of it, but that's from that original picture. I do have like one other picture, I think from also July of 2019. And then basically I had it the smaller pot than I have now, and I had it kind of sitting right on the ground, and I was allowing it to get an escape root. And then February of this year, I cut the escape root off. I repotted it into this pot and chopped it all the way back. And then in June of this year, I actually did, it was one of my first videos I did on this guy or whatever. But anyhow, it does have another escape root. I'm going to prune that off here probably at the end. And then what I'm going to do, I said I was going to do this, I think in my acacia video, is I'm going to just like pick it up out of here and turn it a little bit so that it'll actually choose maybe different holes to go out for the escape route again. It blew over, don't get me wrong, we did, my house right here did not get hit by that tornado that I kept talking about the other day, but it did get close, and it actually blew that escape route over. I went out there and picked it up between the rain, actually put a brick on it, and it blew it over again, brick and all. So I decided, last year I chopped it back in February, it did fine. I was going to wait till around then. I decided to go ahead and do it now just simply because it really is just kind of almost too big out there where I've got it. I consider pretty much like all my material pre-bonsai, but I have this sitting out in some like developing area or whatever, and it's actually kind of shading the rest of the plants out just because of how big it's getting. And I have a couple other, like where I have that, I have everything just sitting on a landscape fabric. I have some other ones that have an escape route or whatever, but it's shading them out and kind of hindering their growth and everything. And since it broke the escape route the other day, I'll go ahead and trim it back. You can see that, see if I can do this without spilling any of the substrate, that it ramifies really well on its own and just kind of goes branch after branch after branch. And I'm kind of, one of my, somebody asked me just the other day on one of my videos, can I do a video with like care tips on these? And part of the problem with these is you really find there's really not all that information out there on keeping them as a bonsai tree. There's plenty of information for keeping them as a yard tree, but not a lot for a bonsai tree. And so I'm really just kind of figuring it out as I go. I do think that this could be doable. I mean, the trunk isn't quite as thick as I'd like it to be, but I don't really want to plan to put it in the ground for years either. So today I'm just going to go ahead. I don't know if you guys can see this one popping up right here. Since I've done the video, I probably cut 4 or 5 of shoots like this that just come right out of the top and kind of almost want to be like the apex. They actually get bigger leaves than the rest of it does and everything else. And this one just has 1 right now. But I'm going to kind of get in here and just prune away. There's all kinds of, there's several layers in here now, but there really is, you got 2 strong branches. This one is followed up by 2 strong, two more stronger ones. This one kind of has 2 coming off the same way, and then some weaker ones coming back like at me right here or whatever. They overlap each other, they touch each other a lot. So I'm just going to kind of get in and, first I'll go ahead and take care of some of this outer stuff. Make it a little bit smaller. Might be able to tighten the camera angle up a little bit for you. And then start trying to get all the layers that are touching each other and just see what I find when I get in here. Sometimes I do think I could elevate this a bit by wiring it. But then sometimes after I prune it, there's not much left. And what is left is pretty lignified. And, even though it's not the spinosa, there's still plenty of thorns. And it's just such a pain to wire something that has this many thorns. Here's 2 branches coming off of one of those stronger ones, and they're growing right on top of each other. And so what I'd like to do is just try to, start separating them, see which ones I want to save. All right, I did want to start around the edge, but this guy's sticking up out of the top here has been bothering me. I did say that I wanted to be a little more selective as I went around. But one thing I am trying to do is get some of these outer ones. I made it so big and so hard to get the entire thing in the camera here. And then maybe after one trip around, I can kind of adjust a little bit and give you guys a little bit of a better look at what I'm doing. Right now, my vision is so bad. When I try to look at the screen and see what it is, you guys can see, it just looks like a big green blur to me. I'm not really even sure. Later on, when I go to look at it on the camera, it's amazing how clear it looks, or on my laptop, sorry. It'll be amazing how clear it looks, and I'll think like, oh my gosh, those guys can't see anything that I'm doing. And it's so amazingly clear up there, but I guess it's just part of aging is I don't really see all that well. I can imagine being this age, like back when my dad was this age or whatever, we didn't have HD TV and everything else. You can just imagine how blurry everything would be. Alright, and I feel like just from me cleaning up the edges there a bit, you can already see kind of some of the layers that are coming in here a little. Really does, if you step back and look at it, it is starting to resemble a little more the trees that you see in the yards around here. Although some of the really older ones, you see a bunch of levels in. That's why now I'm going to start trying to be a little more selective with what I prune instead of just chopping it all the way back, because I do want to try to get that several layers going in here. You know, I was actually thinking, I paid, you know, that original picture that I showed you guys at first, I paid $8 for this. And I get a lot of my students and stuff, they ask, you know, how much is the, you know, how much are your trees worth and everything. And I've paid very little for any of the starter trees. And this one here, you know, I got not quite 3 years ago, just a few months short of 3 years ago. I paid $8 for it. I've done, you know, 4 major prunings and probably maybe 5, 6 more, just kind of little maintenance prunings here and there or whatever. But I'm not going to sell it for $8. And I really don't even know if I could actually, you know, put a price on it unless somebody really wanted it. Because I like it. You know, it's the only one I have like this or whatever. And that's kind of actually, I mean, even my ficus trees, of which I have like several of those types or whatever, I still kind of get just connected to each one. And I really have no desire to sell them. You know, sometimes when somebody says, how much is it worth? I don't know. How much money you got? One care tip I can give, if you're planning to do a shady lady like this one, the actual dwarf one is much better. But this one, if you're going to keep it in a pot, you got to come up with some kind of a plan. because this grows so dense and grows out like this, it is basically like a parachute. And that is why I let it get that escape route all the time, is the escape route anchors into the ground a little bit better. It's pretty wild that all of the summertime thunderstorms we get didn't dislodge it, but then we got that freak December tornado in here, and that picked it right on up. And again, not a tornado for me right here, but it was a, we were under a tornado watch all day, and it was quite windy. This is a branch I do want to keep it and cut it back a little more. I'm going to go ahead do that. Usually with a lower branch I try to let them grow, because a lower branch would be the biggest one, but this is more flat top type of a style. So I don't mind shortening that up a little bit. And in those earlier pictures, just here real quick, that branch right there, I pruned that one time just in trying to keep that and trying to fatten that trunk up a little bit there to avoid the horrible reverse tapers that's probably going to happen at the beginning of the flat top there. But if I feel like if I develop it enough, that inverse taper there will just be part of it, because that'll be where almost like a elevated nabari will happen, where all these branches are just coming out from there. That one I'm going to leave. I think the smaller one on this side I'm going to take out, and now I kind of lost track of where I was here in the canopy because I get distracted like that. That one wasn't in a horrible spot, but really awkward. So I guess it was in a horrible spot if it was awkward, I guess. Alright, so that might be my third or fourth trip around now. Starting to shape up a little bit. This still looks kind of long. That's what she said. Looks a little out of place, but I feel like if I take it out, everything around it would then look out of place. So, I wonder what I should do with that. There is a big knob right here where you can see it has some really strong growth coming out of there. It's got this main branch coming off here. Got one there. That's the branch I was talking about just a few minutes ago. Not in the greatest of places, but it's there. Got this one. That one's coming a little straight up there. Then it comes out to these three. You really shouldn't have three. This is like the thickest one. Then this one's kind of dropping down. I feel like this one's kind of awkward and too close to that one, but I almost feel like if I took it out, it kind of unbalances it that way. And plus there's a huge scar right there already. There's a huge knob right there already. I'm gonna hit that with the knob cutters right now. I did notice that on a ficus, sometimes I'll leave, if you guys can really see that, but I'll leave a knob like that and just kind of let it age and then pop it off later. I did notice on this tree, when I do that, that wood gets really, really hard. And then this one seems to be a little bit more dominant now. The third branch coming off there. And it does have the highest piece coming off of that too. Dominant, thicker, has this piece coming up there. And then has that whole piece there. This is where those leaders were that I was cutting off right at the beginning. I think I am going to get rid of that. Alright, after a little consideration, this was where where I said I kept cutting the apexes coming out, and I can actually see there's a scar here from where I was doing that, and there's two right next to that guy. So I'm going to go ahead and just take that whole piece out there. A little bit higher than I really wanted it to be right now anyway, which then kind of makes that one a little bit too long. I'm a little undecided about that one. That branch there at all. It's a third branch coming out at the beginning of what, would be the start of the flat top, if you will. But once I cut everything else back there, it was definitely a little bit too long there. Boy, that piece is long. It doesn't have much going on there either, does it? Now my Edward scissor hands are really taking over. But I think it's time I retire them now. And then I'm a little, I'm pretty much done here. Alright, so I'm just about done for the day. Went back and looked at those pictures of last year right around this time when I did chop it all the way back in February, which, you know, now it's actually February 6th, so about a month ahead of what I'm doing here. But there's more to it, but I did come back all the way to about that size again. This branch is extra. There's a little more up here than there was then. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I've got a little bit of roots that are coming out of the bottom for what it was like since June. So for 6 months, you know, about what you would expect. Again, they did get ripped out in that windstorm the other day after surviving all the thunderstorms of the summer. But I'm going to cut all these escape roots off. One of the other trees that I have always let the escape root get to was my acacia. And the last video I did of that, I actually said I was going to do it, then forgot to. But what I'm going to do is just kind of separate it from those holes a little bit and twist it and let it sit back down in there. And now it won't get like those just same ones going out of the same holes, and hopefully it'll just kind of allow it to be a little more contained in there for whenever I do try to get it in maybe something a little bit flatter and wider. I'm still kind of out on this. Trim this, say, probably 5 or 6 times all summer. Like every time I see new growth, just kind of clip it back and keep it away from each other or whatever. Or I could do what I've been doing, in that I've only really trimmed it twice in the last year. And I could keep doing that and allowing it to get like a little bit thicker. A little spider there, that was pretty cool. A little bit thicker and just trying to let it develop a little bit more. And then there's a little part of me, you know, that just says like, oh, let me just take this out of the container and put it in the yard.